Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Well, Americans have never been a big fan of federal government, but over the past 3 decades, we've seen anti-government sentiments rise substantially. Yet it's been said, while we hate paying taxes, we certainly enjoy the programs they fund. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at some federally funded partnerships that are having huge impacts in our state. Andy Barth takes us to the Grand Lake area to see how one company is using federal help to bring faster speeds and internet service to rural northeastern Oklahoma.
Rural America completely has been left behind, and we're hoping to help, to make that change.
I head to the opposite end of the state to visit a small town that, thanks to a federal grant, is closing the digital divide.
Oh, these communities are absolutely important. A lot of folks, as someone drives down State Highway 54, they see Cooperton and they see a ghost town. They see a town that's lost population for the last 80 years, but in reality, there's still families that have been farming this land for the last 100 years and are clinging on to the land and deserve to have a similar quality of life as folks that live in the metropolitan areas.
Steve Bennett asked the question, when it comes to our federal tax dollars, is Oklahoma a maker or a taker state? And that answer just may surprise you.
Because the federal government's the funding structure is designed to provide for the states what they cannot do for themselves. And a lot of that is very expensive infrastructure.
Stay with us. This is a show you're not going to want to miss.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education.
Oklahoma's investment in career tech provides more than nationally recognized technology education and training. It produces solid financial returns for the state's economic future. Oklahoma Career Tech, elevating our economy.
And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. And now, from the Career Tech Studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Horizon. Well, it's been called the digital divide, the chasm that's developed between rural and urban America when it comes to internet service. More importantly, broadband, a technology that is as essential as water or electricity to an area's infrastructure. With broadband service, a community is connected to a world of opportunities in everything from commerce to education. And without it, well, with more, here's our Andy Barth.
Well, Rob, having internet nowadays is like having running water. Everyone has it, or at least some version of it. Rural Oklahomans have put up with slow internet speeds for quite some time, but thanks to federal grants, communities in northeast Oklahoma are moving up in the digital age.
We use it every day on our computers, phones, and devices. The digital world connects us to the globe, yet those outside the city limits are often left unable to connect.
Rural America completely has been left behind, and we're hoping to help, to make that change.
Sheila Allgood is the technology manager at Northeast Oklahoma Electric Co-op and says people want better broadband.
We have had a survey at the Electric Co-op's annual meeting that asked what is something that we could do for a service to provide to our membership. And 100% of the time, it's please bring us broadband.
And so an $80 million broadband deployment project started around the Grand Lake area, a project that Allgood says will help boost the economy.
We have a diverse economy. We have the lake area, which is pretty robust in the economic sense. And then we have areas that are just poverty-stricken. And so that is the reason that we're doing this, is to hopefully bring in some jobs and create some excitement in these rural areas.
Keith Adams is with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Development and says the USDA can help bring that excitement to reality.
We in the Rural Utility Service see ourselves as being a champion for rural America where broadband is concerned. We know that in rural America there has been a decline in population. We know that the persistent poverty rate amongst children is growing.
A problem that Adams says can be helped by using federal dollars to bring broadband to rural America.
We have a Community Connect program that helps bring broadband to areas that would normally not have it free internet for 2 years. That's something that the community can have after this program is over with. So we see broadband as being a tool that can level the playing field.
We invest more than $700 million through USDA Rural Development just right here in Oklahoma, addressing a wide range of infrastructure and quality of life issues that rural Oklahomans face. And frankly, without the type of partnership we see through USDA Rural Development, a lot of those quality of life and infrastructure needs just wouldn't be met.
Ryan McMullen is the state director for USDA Rural Development and says the link between poverty and the lack of technology isn't only found in rural areas.
There's a lot of similarities between what we face in rural America and what you see in some inner city communities, and certainly folks don't always appreciate the type of poverty that we face in rural America, but folks are familiar with the poverty often that you see in inner city America, and so that lack of income and that lack of access to technology is frankly what helps perpetuate those cycles of persistent poverty.
And Allgood says people in rural northeast Oklahoma look forward to life in the digital age.
People are so excited about it. They're wanting their neighbors to sign up. They're wanting their friends, and they're talking about it everywhere. So it's been a great community support.
And since the co-op is completely local, Allgood says users receive a high level of customer service.
We're local. You see us in Walmart. You can complain if your broadband's not what you expect. You know where to call. When they call in, they're going to get a local person that they're going to visit with. So I think the trust and the local sense is what's positive.
Offering connection to the digital age to more Oklahomans.
Well, now the project will take place over the next several years and is expected to be completed by the middle of 2016. Customers can reserve their spot on the network for a $100 fee.
Now when we return, we'll explain why it's taking so long to get rural America out of the internet slow lane.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon, featuring some of the good things that are happening in the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, when it comes to high-speed internet service, the difference can come down to 3 simple letters, ROI, which stands for return on investment. A bottom line, most broadband providers say they just cannot make work without a certain level of population density. And while internet service can be as essential to modern life as electricity or telephone service, it does not carry the same distinction. The FCC, the government agency that oversees our public airwaves, has been reluctant to classify the internet as a Title II mandatory service like other utilities. So internet providers essentially tend to just follow the money, and that's most often in urban areas. Join me now from the Texas-Oklahoma Broadband Economic Development Summit at Francis Tuttle Technology Center in Oklahoma City is economist Brian Whitaker, who follows broadband and its impact on our economy. Well, Brian, we've seen some of the work underway here in the state with broadband expansion, but the gap between rural and metro areas is a wide one. But is it starting to close?
Well, it's actually quite surprising. If you look at the data back in 2003, when people were first starting to adopt broadband, the gap between rural and urban was about 13 percentage points. And if you fast forward to 2010, 2011, the gap is still 13 percentage points. We have a lot more people adopting in both rural and urban America, but that gap is still there.
Now, we hear a lot of claims about the economic impact broadband can have in rural areas. What has your study found?
So yes, my research is probably among the latest to find that there is an impact of broadband on the rural economy. So what we did was we looked at otherwise similar rural communities kind of before broadband got there. So they were similar in terms of income, education, unemployment. So around the 2000 time frame. And then we said, okay, let's look fast forward to 2010. Some of those communities did a good job adopting broadband. So they had adoption rates of 60%, 80%. Other ones had very poor adoption of broadband, 40% and less. And we said, okay, let's compare the economic outcomes of those otherwise similar communities. What we found was the ones that did a good job of adopting had higher income levels, lower unemployment levels. Those that did a poor job adopting had fewer jobs, fewer businesses. So yes, there is an economic impact associated with broadband.
Now, there's a definite push in education to deliver more classes to more people using digital technology. How important is broadband from an education standpoint?
It's hugely important. As a college educator, I always ask this question to my students. A lot of them come from classes of 5 people, 10 people, and graduating classes of 40 people, and they always say that the broadband technology really enabled them to have a much better curriculum in their high school classes. So they could take Spanish classes online, they could have higher level math classes. It's very, very important for some of these students that otherwise would not have those opportunities.
Now, each of the companies we're talking with today are up front with the fact that the work they're doing in rural America would not be possible without the federal help. From your perspective, what public policy should we be focusing on?
So that's a great point. Yes, the government does do a great job with these programs. My perspective is we need to focus a little bit more not just on the provision of broadband, but on actively getting people to productively use broadband. So the adoption thing is what I'm really focused on. So the telecommunications companies are doing a great job bringing these lines to rural America, but we need to be a little bit more proactive in teaching them things like e-commerce or how to set up a small business and things of that nature.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Brian Whitaker, an economist who specializes in rural broadband development for Oklahoma State University.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon, the reality versus the rhetoric when it comes to our federal tax dollars.
We either fund the programs through state-only dollars, which is going to be a greater number of state funds that we need to raise than we raise today, or you cut the programs.
But first, neighbors helping neighbors.
Well, for 3 generations now, Hillary Communications has been providing cable and phone service to small communities in southwestern Oklahoma. So they jumped at the chance to partner with USDA Rural Development to help merge more small communities onto the broadband superhighway.
The town of Cooperton often gets passed right on by these days. Outside the occasional Saturday night dance, not much of a reason to stop.
Go.
Except for the grand opening of a new community center, residents here hope can better connect them via the internet.
Wi-Fi signal.
I'm really excited. We've never had reliable service. We've all occasionally been able to find somebody that would try to give us a signal and try to get, but it's never been reliable.
Leanne Ballou says on these windswept plains, even getting a cell signal can be a bit of a challenge. But thanks to a USDA Rural Development grant, residents here can now get online with internet speeds that rival anywhere in the U.S. Ryan McMullen is the state director of USDA Rural Development.
Where's cowboy hat? Oh, these communities are absolutely important. A lot of folks, as someone drives down State Highway 54, they see Cooperton and they see a ghost town. They see a town that's lost population for the last 80 years, but in reality, there's still families that have been farming this land for the last 100 years and are clinging on to the land and deserve to have a similar quality of life as folks that live in the metropolitan areas.
Check your email.
Yet when it comes to internet service, true broadband isn't available for much of rural America. According to the Rural Broadband Policy Group, as many as 100 million country-dwelling Americans suffer through download speeds of about 3 megabytes per second, more of a horse and buggy pace than an internet superhighway. Which is where Hillary Communications comes in.
This is our switch room for our central office.
A spider's web of fiber optic cables that Eddie Hillary says links rural areas of southwestern Oklahoma with the latest TV and internet service.
We offer fiber home services throughout our service area. We offer speeds 50 and 100 meg speeds.
Which rivals anything you find in an urban area.
We also are going into the business park in Elgin and our customers in the Mears area and offering gigabit services.
Which is as good as it gets here in the U.S. and a vast improvement for the small towns that dot their service area. Improvements Dustin Hillary says couldn't have been made without the federal help.
Well, USDA just is a vital role and a good partner to work with, because without this grant we couldn't have done this or even ventured very far out of our our area that, you know, we've been building for the last 40 years. I mean, it's just vital that they're either here with these grants or we've got low interest loans from them, long-term loans that just really, we couldn't do it without them.
And providing cutting-edge internet service to the small towns in this area is no small feat. First, there is the distance. Then there's the topography. Covered in boulders the size of cars, the Wichita Mountains can be a formidable foe. Still, Doug Hillary says the work they do helps their friends and neighbors in ways many never realize.
The rural water is on our systems, that they control the pumps back and forth in this addition through the office and knowing what's going on. The telephones we handle through the USDA, the internet we handle through the USDA, the Cablevision that's in their home, the over-the-top video, the fire departments. Whenever the fire departments get a call from a 911 or from an ambulance, we know who lives in this house that's there. We know their age. We know everything about them, so whenever they're dispatched, they know what's going on whenever they arrive here already, because it's already printed off through the fire station that we're supplying broadband internet to.
Making these overhead lines a true connection to a more sustainable rural Oklahoma. Now, if you'd like to see firsthand just how important high-speed internet service is for rural Oklahoma, just head to our website at okhorizon.com, where I visit with a social networking guru and small-town resident, Becky McCrae, about why online commerce could be the savior of our small communities.
The tools that are available to us online right now represent an unparalleled opportunity for small towns, because the people of small towns grow up with the right set of skills, with the right friendliness, with the right way of treating people as individuals and relating to people one-on-one. Taking all of those skills and going online, we're able, as small town people, to have a huge advantage over people that don't have that same set of skills that comes from their background and their upbringing. Because of that advantage, we have a natural opportunity for small towns to make a wonderful economic benefit out of the online tools that we have right now. Our businesses can benefit, our local institutions can benefit, our organizations, our people can network and learn things from all over the world. These tools represent an unparalleled opportunity.
To see more of my conversation with social networking expert Becky McCrae, just head to okhorizon.com and look for her under our value-added section.
Want to share something you've seen here today? Well, all of our episodes are streaming on our YouTube channel at Oklahoma Horizon TV, or you can subscribe to our weekly free podcast on iTunes. Well, from the earliest days of the Revolutionary War in the Boston Harbor to today's modern-day version of the Tea Party, many Americans are just not a big fan of taxes, and in particular, those taxes that go to the federal government. Yet it is Uncle Sam, courtesy of those taxes we begrudgingly send to Washington, who pays for many of the services we depend upon. OETA's Steve Bennett took a closer look at the correlation between the taxes we pay in Oklahoma and the services we get.
Oklahoma depends on federal funding for many state government operations. Federal money pays for a large portion of health and social services, along with education and transportation. Some state agencies, such as the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, are entirely federally funded. Earlier this year, Oklahoma State Treasurer Ken Miller released a study in his monthly Oklahoma Economic Report showing Oklahoma 7th in the nation in its reliance on federal funds, with 43 cents of every dollar for state government coming from Washington. Miller made a point that the data also showed the top 10 states most dependent on federal funding were red states with Republican-controlled legislatures, while Democratic-led blue states were clustered at the other end of the spectrum.
And the number one state, I think, was Mississippi, and the number 50 state then became Connecticut. And so you still had red and blue on the polar opposite ends. And so, again, something that we found interesting and started talking about why. And I think there's a lot of factors that probably go into it.
Deputy State Treasurer Regina Burcham took a more detailed look at the numbers using another set of statistics and came up with a different ranking for Oklahoma. Burcham's analysis, based on numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau, shows Oklahoma 15th in the nation in its reliance on federal funds, with just under 36 cents of every dollar coming from Washington. Burcham admits the results can be confusing.
The conclusion that we found out of looking at all these various reports is that there really is a lack of consistency in data and a lack of detailed data. And so you can look over all these reports and it's easy to get confused because they leave you asking a lot of questions, which the data just does not answer.
While the two studies came up with slightly different results, both show red states are still among the top recipients of federal funds, with blue states at the bottom. One explanation for that may be higher rates of poverty in red states. Burcham says the data suggest a relationship between poverty levels and the amount of federal funds each state receives.
When we talk about the federal grants that go to the states, the largest single category is for public welfare. And if those public welfare programs like TANF and Medicaid, their eligibility is based on income levels in relation to the federal poverty level. So states that have a higher poverty rate are going to receive more funds in that category.
Burcham's analysis takes into account Oklahoma's poverty rate, which is 16th highest in the nation. Coupled with that is the state's rate of educational attainment, which is 40th out of 50 states. Oklahoma City University economics professor Kyle Dean argues there is a correlation between those factors.
Those two things are linked, and so it's not surprising then that the red states would get more in social programs and transfer payments because they tend to be lower income states and have lesser educational attainment.
While there may be several reasons for that, Dean points to the fact that red states tend to be more rural in nature, while blue states on the nation's coast have more urban populations and larger cities.
Cities are the most efficient places to deliver services, to deliver education, cities are the places where you end up with higher wages. So there are a lot of factors that make urban areas conducive to higher incomes, to better educational attainment.
But one thing that we know for a fact is that if you increase educational attainment and if you increase levels of income, you're going to lift those rankings, and that's going to have an effect on the receipt of federal funds.
Dean believes the analysis offers a roadmap for Oklahoma policymakers to lessen the state's reliance on federal aid.
The first thing we can take away from it is that education matters, and how we educate our populace matters. And so how can we efficiently deliver a quality education, whether it's secondary education, primary education, or higher education?
Treasurer Miller released a statement about the findings cited in the Oklahoma Economic Report, saying the amount of federal funds used by a state tells only part of the story, but it does provide insight as to what functions of state government are most reliant on federal assistance, important lessons as policymakers seek to become less dependent on shrinking federal funds. But is it realistic to think Oklahoma can do completely without federal money?
No, I don't think so, and I wouldn't believe the treasurer would think so either, because the federal government's the funding structure is designed to provide for the states what they cannot do for themselves, and a lot of that is very expensive infrastructure.
Dean agrees the state would be hard-pressed to get by without aid from Washington.
If you're going to wean yourself off federal dollars, your choices then are going to be, we either fund the programs through state-only dollars, which is going to be a greater number of state funds that we need to raise than we raise today, or you cut the programs.
The federal funding totals for Oklahoma do not include money the federal government spends on military bases, post offices, and other federal agencies officing in the state. That funding is not in the total because those federal dollars are not administered by the state.
You can keep up with us throughout the week. Just head to okhorizon.com, where you can see more of any of our stories, read our reporters behind the scenes blogs, see what others are saying about us on Twitter, and face the facts with our regular updates. So reach out and touch us anywhere and anytime.
Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, we look at Oklahoma's aerospace industry and the jobs it creates.
When we sell a set of fuel injectors, that sale may take place in Texas. Very little of it actually takes place here in Oklahoma. And so that $1,000 is money that comes into this community and stays here.
Plus, we'll give you a preview of the All-American Air Show at Tinker Air Force Base. On Oklahoma Show for the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Well, that is going to wrap us up for today, but you can see more of any of our stories on our website at okhorizon.com. You can watch us on the go with our weekly podcast on iTunes. Follow us throughout the week on Twitter at OKHorizonTV, or just become a Horizon fan on Facebook. I'm Rob McClendon. Thanks for watching. See you back here next time.
Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. Copies of today's show are available on our website, okhorizon.com. Thank you for watching Oklahoma Horizon.